Good afternoon, everyone. Part of a team in SAP which entails a lot of travel, right? And I keep moving to different cities, speak in events like this, and I love that job. Now, there are good part about being in this job is that it takes me to exotic places like Leela Kempinski, Goa. It also allows me to talk to esteemed audience like this. Now, I've been doing this for quite some time now. Last year and a half, I've been doing this, talking to different people, going to different locations. A trend has started to emerge out of the time slots that I get in terms of where do I speak. Invariably, it has been that I either am the last person before lunch or the first person after lunch. The flip side is to both. The flip side is if you are the last person before lunch, you invariably stand between the audience and lunch. It's a tough ask. If you're the first person after lunch, you have to keep all of them awake. Luckily, I got lucky today. There's another gentleman after me, and I'm sure he'll do justice of not standing too long between lunch and the audience. But again, coming back to the topic that I want to speak about today is aligning strategy to execution. Right? And while I was preparing for this yesterday, or in fact about a day or two ago, I came across a small picture somewhere in Harvard Business Review. What I saw was a man jumping on a trampoline. So I had done this before a while ago in US. It's a trampoline where you jump on it, it goes up and down. It's a fun game for not only kids but adults as well. I had not seen the caption of this picture yet, and then I suddenly thought, what was a trampoline doing in a Harvard Business Review? And then the caption said, when I turned the flip page, it said, are you ready to rebound? That's when things started coming into mind, and I thought that this was actually something which I was going to talk anyway. When I talk about aligning strategy to execution, this is something that fell in place. And as I started reading this article, and I'll talk in a bit about what this article was all about, but it talked about pre-recession scenario. Pre-recession scenario, it was boom time. So boom time is typically guided by favorable macroeconomic scenarios like abundant supply of cash, good customer sentiment, etc., etc. So during these times, businesses typically thrive a lot. But again, complexities arise when September 2008 like events happen. There's recession, things go bad. Organizations, because the reason that they've been doing so well, suddenly do not know how to cope up with them. So there has to be some kind of a check mechanism which events like this provide. But when companies emerge out of it, or as they've started to emerge out of it, as they slowly crawl back, they now realize that just defining a strategy at the highest level and then just sitting and expecting that everything will be hunky-dory does not really happen. We need to have a robust mechanism, a much flexible and agile environment in which we work, which helps you support your organizations, take it to the next level. So this article was actually written by a professor from the London School of Business, and he has done extensive study in emerging markets in the last 8 or 10 years. And the book is The Upside of Turbulence by Donald Skull. I have not read the book, but I really like a one-pager. It actually even appeared in the Mint about a fortnight ago. So what it talks about is, basis his learnings that he has done in last 10 years, he talks about 7 questions which organizations or managers in the organizations should ask before they feel, are they ready to rebound? Now, some of these, I'm not going to talk on all of them. I'll just pick up some of them which are actually relevant and will dovetail into what I'm going to talk in the next 15-20 minutes. First one, for example, do you miss opportunity that others spot? So my colleague Manish in the morning spoke about how IT systems have been put in place, what important role does SAP have to play in that parlance, the data that you gather. We've done a lot of data gathering in last decade or so. Now is the time to unlock that information. So are you able to do that before your competitor does it? Are you able to do it more effectively than your competitor? Are your hydraulics broken? This is something, an analogy which he drew from hydraulics in an organization being a strategic decision that's taken in the boardroom, and the objectives get aligned across the organization, and everyone in the organization knows exactly how he's going to contribute towards it. So he calls this as a hydraulic mechanism for an organization. Another thing which I found interesting was number 6, which is, have your Vikings become farmers? And I knew a bit about what Vikings are. So Vikings, he draws an analogy to executives in an organization who excel. So they excel in a lot of things, and they are like Vikings who move from place to place. The moment they see unprotected territory, they try to attack, capture it, and once they have attacked and captured it, they try to develop an instinct of farming on it. So as Vikings become farmers, which is an analogy is because an entrepreneur, when he starts an organization, he's like a Viking. He sees an opportunity, he cultivates it, he then starts realizing that there's more fun in farming it, growing the business rather than moving out into new territories. So that's where the concept was, are you Vikings becoming farmers? Which means a healthy organization or a growing organization has to be a mix of Vikings and farmers. Now some of these points actually help you not only rebound, but also take you to the next level of performance, which is basically improve performance, taking into consideration a lot of other things in the turbulent market space. So there are obviously barriers to increase performance. Right? When we talk about barriers to increase performance, you need to start from the execution standpoint. We know execution, how important it is. The reason we have execution, or let me just step back a bit and say that in terms of when you have to execute a certain activity, let's say in an organization, ordering books online or booking a ticket on IRCTC or manufacturing a car in an assembly line, as long as your processes are well defined and streamlined, you can improve on efficiency and effectiveness. You can save time, you can save cost, you can optimize your processes and take it to the next level. Now what execution does, it tells you what are the right things which you need to do. So do the things right is what execution puts in place through best practices. You've done that, but you also need to identify what are the right things. So you need to do the right things which actually get defined in a strategy meeting in a boardroom. Now, the unfortunate part is that 90% of the cases, and this is statistics which has been published a lot of places, 90% of the times, what you define as a strategy in a boardroom does not really get percolated down to an execution. So in a boardroom, strategy gets defined, people sit in the boardroom, when they go back, they still work the same way because they do not really know what they're going to do, how is it going to contribute to the overall objectives to the organization. So there's a lack of alignment between strategy and execution. So we call that strategic alignment between these. What also happens is when you talk about strategy, you also venture into new markets. So let's say an opportunity in downturn. So not all risks are bad. Some risks could also help you get into new kind of opportunities. Now when you look at opportunities, at the same time you also need to look at the risks associated with it. Because if you focus too much on opportunities, you might follow a trend which might mislead you to something else. But if you focus too much on the risks, you might become stagnant and not look at your future. So the risk and opportunities, when they get balanced together, we call it as predictable performance. And if your strategic alignment is in place, if your predictable performance falls under this realm, you also need to tie all of them together through a feedback loop, which means if your strategy is risk adjusted, a classical example of the reason why BP is getting penalized today is not for anything else but because they do not have a risk mitigation strategy in place. Had they had a risk mitigation strategy, they would have probably been less penalized for the oil spill that's happening. So it gives you a framework through which you can have risk adjusted strategies. You put it back into your feedback loop and then take it to the next level. So these three form the cornerstones of what we call in terms of the SAP Business Objects portfolio. So strategic alignment, predictable performance and confident decisions. And these three are based upon three core strengths which we call as ensure trusted information, proactively engaging risk, which is basically risk mitigation strategy, risk management, how do you rate your risks, and finally create enterprise visibility, which comes from the business intelligence part. Now all of this put together, I just kind of do a small distinction between these two. The blue one that you see is the older phase of SAP, which was the ERP layer. The one on the top, which is the yellow, is actually the new phase of SAP, which myself, Manish, Siddharth and Premal represent here today. So what it talks about is four key components. We start with business intelligence, and most of you would know, and I think there's been a lot of talk about how BI is important, dashboard, etc., etc. So that's the BI part in it. Then you also have the information management, which is basically laying your foundation to start any other journey besides BI and a lot of other stuff. You talk of governance, risk and compliance, and sustainability is getting a lot of importance, whether your carbon credits or your risk management or your clause 49s or segregation of duties as access control, process control. And finally, you tie all of them through the enterprise performance management portfolio. I'm going to do a small quick demo which actually pulls in all of this together and shows you how a strategic alignment, predictable performance and strategic decision making happens together. So I'm going to do a quick demo on this. And I will start with what we call as a balanced scorecard approach. You could use any kind of performance management framework that you have in the organization, but typically the most prevalent one is the one from Norton Capital, which most of the organizations do. Then I'm going to take a small example of how a balanced scorecard typically works, and I'm going to act as a CFO for the organization. The CFO in the morning logs in into the system. He sees the KPIs that are most relevant to him. They're obviously assigned according to whether it's a financial perspective, an operational perspective, innovation, sales, internal growth, etc., etc. As I keep scrolling across this, I see that increased revenue and improved margins is something that is showing into red. Let me just click on it, and the moment I click on it, I see that the objective says increased revenue and improved profits. There's a small description on it. There are some initiatives and certain KPIs underlying this objective. Now my EPS is employee and gross margin percentage. I see that gross margin percentage is something which is of relevance, because margins is something which I had thought at the beginning of the year is this year margin is going to be my focus area. As I click on margins, I come to this page which actually focuses on the historical trends of this margin. I get the actual measures, what was the past performance, whether it is in green or yellow, an alert mechanism kind of a thing. And it has also got some associated links. What I also have is a histogram which talks about targets and actuals. So till the time I reach September of 2009, I see more or less I'm within the band, I'm not too much worried about it. But in September 2009, there's something that's going wrong here. So why don't I just explore further into it? And when I explore further, now this is a CFO who's doing all of this. Right? So a CFO is typically not attuned to know cryptic names that SAP provides in terms of OPAs and BW cubes, etc., etc. So I need an interface which is as easy as, let's say, Google. So I have a Google-like interface wherein I just have to type a string. So my string search when I started my through a balanced scorecard was margins. So let me just type margin here. And what I'll do is I'll just say go and search margin numbers across my database which is there. It goes and searches. Not as sophisticated as Google search, definitely we're getting there, but what it does is it comes out with relevant results, and it says that is the query, or is this the data source through which you're looking at. So it says sales and margin written here. It also gives me a quick overview of, it has net sales plan, etc., etc. So I'll just click on this, and it opens up an interface which is as quick as it's actually here. So right now it's a sample data set with records not huge in volumes, but we have some of these running in our landscape which is about 500 million records, and response times are about 2 or 3 seconds. So that's the kind of speed that we are talking about when a CFO is doing, or any CXO level individual, head of line of business, who just needs to do quick analysis, root cause on where the problem arises. Now September 2009 is what I started my problems with. I'm doing a root cause analysis now. So let me just click on September 2009, and I see there's, for this period, cost of sales was down. I know that my company 100, company code 100, it's a fictitious name, company code 100, contributes towards a large portion of my revenue between these two. I also know my sales happen a lot through direct sales channel. So I click on these. Now that's not sufficient for me to do any more analysis. What I also need to do is look at the net sales, and I also need to look at the cost of sales put together. So I need to look at both of them in a scenario in which I can make a better judgment on what's going on. Probably I could just increase the landscape here and see what's exactly going on. I also see certain other products within the ballpoint. Now things have started to emerge for me. Within the margins, now I know the ballpoint pen is actually a problematic area. I can look at trends. Has it been like this always? Or is it something which has just appeared for this month? Within ballpoint, I also have more details, like a plastic pen with normal or different product categories basically. I could go on and on, slice and dice across different dimensions, characteristics which I have here. But that I'll leave it to the next in the line of business. So my subordinate, probably I'll just email this to him through this link and say, why don't you just go and take a look at why a particular ballpoint product category is going down in terms of margins. So he goes back. In the meantime, I know that there's something which has gone wrong. Oops, sorry. I'll have to just repeat that. Pardon me. And it's all integrated within each other. So different solutions which we spoke about in the beginning, is all kind of integrated. And the metadata, which is more of a technical term, gets integrated so that you have a single version of truth across the organization. So I'll just select net sales again and cost of sales. And look into trend. Alright. So I did that root cause analysis. I gave it off to the person who actually goes further down, does some more calculations, etc. In the meantime, I thought it will be prudent enough to see if I can do some kind of initiative to bring the margins back. I already see there's an initiative which says Omega Margin Initiative. There's an initiative which someone has taken already. And let me just go deeper into what that initiative is. So there are multiple initiatives which are running in the organization right now. The Omega Margin Initiative lies right here. It talks about budgets on time, or what is the cost, when was it started, who is the author, owner, etc. It also gives me further milestones or dependent activities which come to this particular initiative. I can take a look at it from a fishbone perspective. So the Omega Margin becomes my key initiative, and there are multiple activities which are based on this. So assessing risk, as I said, risk mitigation strategies and risk management is an important criteria. So I have a heat map here which talks about the likelihood of an event, whether it is certain, likely, possible, unlikely, and what is the risk that it has on that outcome. So I can take a look at the entire risks which are associated with this, and I see that decreasing order from a major customer is a big risk for me. If a major customer of mine slashes down the order, there's a problem that I have at hand. So let me just go and take a look at what's happening here. I can also have a response plan here. What I can also do is, I can have some key risk indicators as an alert mechanism. So the moment I know for a particular customer, if the values of his order are going below a specific threshold, there could be certain KPI indicators which can come in place. So I can do that. I can go back here. I also see there's a dependent activity which says aligning corporate and operational planning, which means budgeting planning also has an impact on my overall initiative. I can take a quick view of what's happening at budgeting planning and my overall forecasting, my annual budget process. And I see there's a current forecast, there's an adjusted forecast without risk, and there's a risk adjusted forecast. So risk has an importance whether you're doing a strategic planning, you're doing annual budgeting activity. Will not get into words of how the numbers came, but I'm assuming it has been done and taken care of. I go back here and finally come back to my same slide and get into different objectives if I want. Now, not every individual in an organization might want to start with a balanced scorecard or something as strategic as this. So what we also have is a simple dashboard. Right now, I've picked a dashboard which Jet Airways is deployed. It's not an exact dashboard which Jet Airways uses, but they're one of our happy customers who are using business intelligence tools from SAP on top of PW. Now, what it talks about is an executive dashboard and profitability simulation. So they wanted to do some analysis on flights starting from Chennai and moving towards Delhi. There are 3 KPIs which I have as on-time performance, passenger load factors, and aircraft utilization. These 3 were of key importance to them. What they also wanted to look at is bookings by month. And within month, these are actually the histogram is for the entire month. So there are dates across. I can click on each of this date and it shows me the bookings by class. So for the month of February, I can actually see what are the different class types under which the booking was made. And also the different channels through which the booking was made. So in the month of Feb, I see that there are agent sales, counter sales, and internet sales, and who are underperforming, overachieved, or orders which got cancelled. This was more from a static dashboard which I see at the beginning of every week or every month as part of my business review that I'm taking with my colleagues or peers. What I also want to do as part of my overall planning process is do some kind of scenario analysis. Now we all know when we do budgets, we create multiple scenarios. We need to look at budgets versus actuals multiple times, save them, go back, revisit. What if I change a small number by 2%? How is the total impact on profitability going to be? So these are some of the things which I want to do. And what if I could actually do it through a GUI which is as simple as this? And I have basically classified the overall, my final KPI, which is my profitability analysis, across three things that impact it. So there are variables under indirect costs, there are variables under direct costs, there's weekly aircraft operations, and finally you have a profitability analysis. So I start by, my marketing investment has to go up because we have reached a stage where now we can spend more. So I can now take a decision of whether I make my connect flights as connect select. So that could be one decision on marketing, I could do that. My HR spending could increase. My operations spending has to still come down because my bottom line is still important, and I could increase some training costs. So how does the indirect cost per flight now come out to? Fuels are going up, so I can just increase the fuel rates, and these are all fictitious numbers. I mean, we'll not focus on the numbers here, but what it basically talks about is a very simple UI to which I'm actually doing a profitability analysis. I have number of aircrafts which I can increase, but the moment I go to 3, say that aircraft utilization has fallen below threshold, so it turns red. The moment I reduce this, it will probably go down, and at some point it will increase. My load factor has also been given a threshold, and at some point my load factor at 81% is what the management says is the load factor be. And finally, how do I make a decision of increasing the revenue per passenger? So if I increase the ticket sales, this is where the profitability gets into 1 or 3. I can save this scenario, I can load a previously saved scenario, I can go back and do multiple such things. This data can get written back into BW. You can actually write it to R3 as well if you want. But typically budget numbers are not written to the transaction system, but just kept it at a BI there. So we can do that as well. You can also have a small ticker here which could further do. So there's a lot of things that you can do as part of this. Now this was something which a lot of customers say that you coming from SAP. So this is something Jet Airways prepared on their own. A lot of customers said you coming from SAP, you've got so much vast of, let's say 22 industries that we boast about across where SAP has a solution for. So why doesn't SAP provide content across all of this? So there are 3 key pillars actually across which we started thinking on. And the first one which came was SAP's industry experience and leadership. So across 22 industries, 30 odd years, we've gained a lot of information by working with customers across the globe. So we thought that let's put all of them together in a single database. Then performance improvement benchmarking database. So as we started walking across this line, we also have another function within SAP which is called as value engineering. So value engineering does a lot of benchmarking study across organizations, across peers within the industry, outside of the industry. So we collect that data as well. And finally the BI technology which I showed you a while ago, which was the business objects front ends. So what we did is we picked up the industry leadership as part of the industry knowledge, the benchmarking data, the BI technology that we had, and also the customer data. So we can actually augment the data which is not present and then couple all of them together and create something that we call as a GE cockpit to impact business performance. What it talks about, it works on the similar lines of the way the Jet Airways dashboard works. But the beauty of this will be it provides content across lines of business heads. So a CEO logs in, he will see specific KPIs for him. A chief performance, a chief procurement officer logs in, a CFO logs in. All of them will change basis what the person of the individual is. What you can have is on this style, we have tried to create it more or less as a templatized format so that every individual gets the same user experience. On this side we have the KPIs. Now unfortunately this is not working because it requires live internet connectivity because I have Google Maps also integrated here. So I can integrate Google Maps and I can see at a geography level how is it performing. From a benchmarking perspective, I don't know if it is visible at the behind, but it says show industry average. I can take this and I'll pick up the best data from the benchmarking study and it shows how well are you performing in terms of, let's say, operating margins. So if today X company was to see operating margins best in class and worst in class and where they stand, they could actually do that. We could actually look at performance snapshots, etc. Drill down, all of that is possible in this one. So that was a quick one about providing content as well as part of the value engineering cockpit. We are all moving towards convergence, at least in SAP we are moving towards convergence, and that's one thing that is very unique to SAP in terms of whether it is the GRC, whether it is enterprise performance management, BI or information management. It all goes together and helps you give what I started with is aligning your strategy to execution. So you start with defining that there are multiple blocks that are interrelated within each other. There is a healthy share of data or metadata as we call it in terms of technology between all of them. And we call this as the ERP for the management. So you had ERP for transactions, running your business. We have now ERP for the management. And I was talking to some of the customers outside, and some of you may already have seen this before in terms of where SAP is going, but I thought it should be still shown in an audience like this, where SAP is going in terms of where performance management is moving towards. So there's a lot of talk on in-memory analytics. There's a lot of talk on how everything will now move into in-memory. We already have technology in terms of BI which moves in memory. We are also moving the enterprise performance management into memory. So the medium-term plan that you see on the extreme right is where we talk about EPM moving into in-memory. So your budgeting consolidation as volumes increase could also be done within the RAM that we have. Right? From a quick overview of where we are in terms of enterprise performance management today, so we have profitability and cost management, consolidation, budgeting, planning, etc. We can share the numbers of costs and capacity which come profitability across your process control. They can have your actuals and budgets and KPIs initiatives coming from strategy. So I actually did this demo when we started initially. So your KPIs come from strategy management, they work interlinked with your budgeting planning. You could also do consolidation of your numbers with the IFRS kit in place. You also have your XBRL and UV matrix through which you can submit your data online to your exchange boards. And all of this, whether it is SAP environment or non-SAP environment, we try to be as agnostic as possible because some customers might use SAP, some might not. So that was one. Again, just a couple of more slides before I wrap it up. That is currently available. So most of this is already available. Where we are moving towards is harmonizing the web UI. Now just to give you a background, some of these solutions have been acquired in the last 2.5 to 3 years. Business Objects being one example. All of this is now converging together, the GRC, EPM, etc. And we're trying to harmonize the web user interface. We're also harmonizing the financial information management, which is creating the foundation layer for all of this together. So this gets harmonized. At the top yellow which you see is that the business intelligence for business objects. So the business objects BR becomes an all-encompassing layer on top of all of these solutions. And again at the bottom you see whether it is SAP BW or a non-SAP environment, we still try to be agnostic to it. I'll just leave you with a quick thought on a small statistic again which I found. It says that the human brain can make only 2 conscious calculations per second. But at the same time, we expect our systems to scan 1 billion business records and provide analytical insights. So with the kind of technology that SAP is providing, the in-memory databases, etc., we have an answer to most of these solutions today. And I'll just leave you with this thought. Thank you. Questions? Great. Any? Yes. The BR works. See, again, as I said, the point was most of them are acquired. So they had a very healthy install base even before SAP acquired them. For example, the planning solution had 800 customers before we acquired them. Business Object was the best in class anyway for a very long time till SAP acquired. So we have tried to be, caring for those companies as well who are non-SAP. So it works perfectly well. Yes, absolutely. Any homegrown system is also fine.